how I ended up in Ukraine amid war, and what I saw there. My name is James, and I come from a small town in Pennsylvania. I had always wanted to see Ukraine, its culture, traditions, and people. Everything seemed so distant and mysterious. When I finally bought a ticket and landed in Kyiv, I was overwhelmed with emotions from excitement to a slight nervousness. During the first days, I wandered the city streets, marveling at the architecture, tasting borscht and vareniki in small cafes. The people were open, sometimes smiling, sometimes with a more reserved look, which made me a bit uneasy, but I thought it was just their way. On the third day, the first air raid siren sounded. It shocked me. Back home in Pennsylvania, I had never heard anything like that. The locals, however, seemed used to it. They quickly and calmly rushed to shelters without showing panic. My first experience of taking cover was unexpected. Along with several passers-by, I found myself in an old underground passage. There, in the darkness, I began to understand that this was not just a tourist trip. It was an immersion into a real life far from my usual expectations. During one of those moments, I met Irina, a girl from Kyiv who worked at a local hospital. She told me about her life during the war, about fear, hope, and the incredible strength of spirit that one can only understand when being here. "We are used to living with this pain," she said, "but every day we fight just to remain human." These words touched my heart. I felt that I wanted to tell this story not about war as a terrible event, but about people who continue to live and love despite everything. The following days became a true challenge for me. After meeting Irina, I started talking more with locals, not just street vendors or guides, but those who live here in Kyiv and experience every day in ways I could never have imagined. I realized that every minute in Ukraine now is worth its weight in gold. People try to keep everyday life working, teaching children, caring for parents, cooking food while constantly living in tension because of sirens, alarming messages on their phones, and the possibility of sudden shelling. For the first time, I had to take shelter in a bomb shelter. I had never imagined it could be so frightening and yet so familiar to many here. In the darkness, among strangers, I felt fear and helplessness, but also a strange solidarity when everyone sits quietly together, all feeling the same. Irina taught me a few simple things that can save your life: how to quickly respond to signals, where to find a safe place, how to behave during an alert. I tried not to show my fear, but she could see through me. "You don't have to be ashamed. Everyone here is like that. You just have to learn to live on," she said. I began learning the Ukrainian language, not just tourist phrases, but real words people use in everyday life. I was struck by the melody of the language and its strength. Every word seemed to carry a story, pain, and hope. One day, I went with Irina to a small village in western Ukraine where she had relatives. Life there was different, calmer, but still not without worries. People welcomed us with bread and salt, sharing stories of how the war had changed their lives. I felt that this culture and spirit could not be understood through TV screens or news. Only here, among these people who have lost so much but not their humanity, did I begin to understand the true meaning of the word strength. After returning from the village, I began to feel that Ukraine had become more than just a country to visit. There was something that touched the deepest chords of my soul's sincere hospitality and the unbreakable will of the people. One evening, Irina invited me to her home. I was a little worried because the house was located near one of the districts occasionally subjected to shelling, but she spoke with such confidence that I decided to trust her. Her family welcomed me as if I were part of their own. Irina's mother prepared a delicious borscht with homemade salo and pampushki. The dinner was warm and cozy, filled with smiles and light laughter, as stories about everyday life and hopes for peace were shared. During dinner, we listened to the radio announcing new strikes in the eastern part of the country. Irina glanced nervously at her phone a few times, and I felt tension gradually seep into this seemingly perfect picture. That's when I saw the real fight in her eyes, not physical, but the one that lives in the heart when people, despite fear, stand together and do not lose hope. Even in this moment of hospitality, war didn't seem so far away. The next day, Irina took me to a volunteer base where locals gathered aid for soldiers and civilians. I saw how small boxes filled with medicines, food, and warm clothes became true messages of support and love. There I met Andrei, a young man from Chernihiv, who lost his home and family but never lost faith. He told me that every letter, every package, was not just things, but strength that keeps them fighting. I realized Ukraine is not just war and destruction. It is millions of small stories about humanity, about that incredible ability to keep one's soul even in the darkest times. After a few weeks, I began to feel that my time in Ukraine was changing me deeper than any other journey. Here, among people who fight every day for the simplest things, peace, safety, family, I learned to appreciate every moment. Irina became my guide, not only to Ukrainian culture, but also to understanding myself. She showed me that true strength is not in physical muscle or career achievements, but in the ability to remain human in the toughest times. We visited several museums together, where I learned about Ukraine's history, its fight for independence and cultural traditions. But most importantly, I saw it in the eyes of people, their gestures, in the songs that echoed through the streets, and in their everyday interactions. One evening, Irina invited me to her sister's Ukrainian wedding. It was a true celebration of life amid the shadows of war. People sang, danced, laughed, and cried all at once. I felt how these emotions blended into an unparalleled mixture: pain and joy, fear and hope. There I tasted authentic Ukrainian medivka honey liqueur for the first time and heard stories of Cossack glory, about the greatness of spirit passed down through generations. It was a lesson in strength I will never forget. Life around us didn't get easier. Shelling continued. Tension lived in every phone call. But I started to understand that the true beauty of this country is in its people, who, despite everything, do not lose the desire to live and love. Over time, I noticed that life in Ukraine was a delicate balance between daily challenges and small moments of joy that seemed to shine even brighter against difficult circumstances. Morning walks in the park became my new routine. Even when the sky was gray and the air tense from recent events, you could always see children laughing, an elderly woman feeding pigeons, and couples holding hands. One day, on a park bench, I met Ole, a middle-aged man who worked at the local library. He told me how important it was to preserve history and culture even in the toughest times. "Books are our treasure that no one can take away," he said with a sad smile. From Ole, I heard many stories about Ukraine, how people fought for their land through different eras, yet always found the strength to smile and help each other. Warm meetings with new acquaintances became my little islands of calm, giving me strength to keep going. Irina and I often discussed what we had seen and felt. She shared her experiences and I told her about the world I came from. Gradually, we created a shared language, not just verbal, but emotional. And though life sometimes threw difficult trials, unexpected power outages, long queues for groceries, alarming messages on the phone, we learned to find meaning in it all and not lose faith. My time in Ukraine was inevitably coming to an end. The days that once felt like just a trip had transformed into a profound experience that would forever remain in my heart. In the last weeks, I spent time walking familiar Kyiv streets, visiting favorite cafes, and talking with those who had become more than acquaintances, true friends. One evening, Irina invited me to a dinner with her closest family and friends. We sat for hours, sharing stories, laughing, and sometimes falling into silence because words are not always necessary when there is understanding between people. I realized I was not just leaving a country, but a part of myself, the part that had learned to appreciate the true strength of spirit, hospitality, and humanity, even in the darkest times. Right before my flight, I stood at the airport, looking up at the evening sky. My heart was pounding with a mix of joy for going home and sadness over saying goodbye. I promised myself that this story would not remain just a memory. I would tell the world about Ukraine not only as a country of war, but as a nation that unbreakably holds on to life and the future. And though I was returning to America, a part of me would forever stay here in the warm smiles and those unexpected moments of humanity that I saw every day. Update 1. Communication and language. I want to answer a few questions that I was often asked during this trip and after sharing the story. Question: was it difficult to communicate with locals if you didn't know Ukrainian? Answer: yes, at first it was difficult. Most Ukrainians understand Russian, some speak English, but not everyone. I started learning Ukrainian phrases and people really appreciated my efforts. A smile and openness helped a lot. Often we communicated with gestures or using translators on our phones. The most important thing is respect and a willingness to understand each other. Question: did you experience culture shock? Answer: yes, especially because of the constant sirens and alerts. I had never experienced anything like that in America. But at the same time, I was amazed by the strength and warmth of the people who did not let the war break them. Update 2. Safety. An everyday life question. Were you afraid to walk the streets? Answer. At first, yes. But over time, I learned to understand the signals and avoid risks. Locals helped me navigate and explained what was better to do and when. Safety is a combination of awareness and trust. Question. How did you spend your free time? Answer. I walked a lot, visited museums, talked with locals, and helped volunteers. It gave me a sense of belonging and support. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.